Jaya, Jaya, is it on? Yeah. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Giri Varadari, Jaya Giri Varadari. Jaya Giri Varadari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Giri Varadari, Jaya Giri Varadari. Jaya Giri Varadari, Jaya Giri Varadari, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Brajajana Ranjana, Jaya Brajajana Ranjana, Jaya Jaya Brajajana Ranjana, Jaya Brajajana Ranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Brajajana Ranjana, Jaya Brajajana Ranjana, Jaya Jaya Brajajana Ranjana, Jaya Brajajana Ranjana, Jaya Yamuna Tiravana Chari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Yamuna Tiravana Chari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Yamuna Tiravana Chari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everybody, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everybody, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Louder. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya. Nitai Gora Haribol, 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 Nitai Gora Haribol. Nitai Gora Haribol, 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 Gora Haribol, 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 Nitai Gora Haribol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya. Astotra Satashi Srimad Divine Grace Shilasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya. Astotra Satashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Anantikoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Primsiko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Brihat Madanga Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Yaka Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Jani Tagora Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Oh, glorious to some devotees, Hare Krishna. Oh, glorious to some devotees, Hare Krishna. Oh, glorious to some devotees, Hare Krishna. Oh, glorious to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Oh, glorious to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so we're reading from the 4th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 16, text number 18. This chapter is entitled Praise of King Prithu by the professional reciters. So, induced by the sages, these professional reciters are speaking verses of glorification to Prithu Maharaj. So, you won't know the Sanskrit, so I'll just read the Sanskrit and then we will go through from that point. Okay. Dehinam atmatvat prishta. I'll just go the whole thing, I don't think you know read it. Dehinam atmavat prishta suradam nandi vadanaha mukta sangha prasangoyam dandapani asadusu. Okay, please repeat after me. Dehinam, to all living entities having a body. Atmavat, as himself. Preshtaha, considering dear. Suradam, of his friends. Nandivadanaha, increasing pleasures. Muktasanga, with persons devoid of all material contamination. Prasangaha, intimately associated. Ayam, this king. Dandapanihi, a chastising hand. Asadusu, to the criminals. Translation in purple by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The king will consider all embodied living entities as dear as his own self, and he will always be increasing the pleasures of his friends. He will intimately associate with liberated persons, and he will be a chastising hand to all impious persons. Purple. The word Dehinam refers to those who are embodied. The living entities are embodied in different forms, which number 8,400,000 species. All of these were treated by the king in the same way he would treat himself. In this age, however, so-called kings and presidents do not treat all other living entities as their own self. Most of them are meat eaters, and even though they may not be meat eaters and may pose themselves to be very religious and pious, they still allow cow slaughter within their state. Such sinful heads of state cannot actually be popular at any time. Another significant word in this verse is Mukta Sangha Prasangaha, which indicates that the king was always associating with liberated persons. Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shilakaya Chakshu Umilitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakruchatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpaturbhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so I want to begin by requesting the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, especially my worshipable seniors, Maharaj and Srivas Prabhu, their blessings so we can speak something in the assembly of the devotees that will be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada and the Guru Parampara. So, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the different verses of the different cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam relate to different topics. So, in the second canto, Bhagavatam itself states, Atrasaga Visagascha, Stanam Poshanam Utaya, Manvanta Ishanukata, Nirodha Mukti Ashraya. So these 10 topics, Saga, Visaga, Stanam, etc. So, the fourth canto is Visaga, the secondary creation. And within this fourth canto, we have the pastimes of King Prithu. And specifically here, we are understanding the qualifications and the activities of a king. Why is this so important to us? It is so important to us because literally the leaders make the age and the age makes the leader. So when the Lord comes for a number of reasons. To annihilate the miscreants, to deliver the devotees, to associate with his devotees. He also talks about this re-establishment of religion. Dharma and Sanatana Dharma. And so in the previous ages, the king was actually a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here, it's not just a representative, it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Taking the role of a king to let everyone understand by his own example the qualifications and the activities of a king. Behind this behavior is something very, very deep and very, very, very emotional, actually. And that is the principle of protection. There is a very intimate relationship between the emotional state of the citizens, the emotional state of the members of the family, and exactly what we're reading about in the pages of the Bhagavatam. What is the connection? The connection between protection and the emotional state of the citizens is based upon one thing. And that is this very subtle truth. The very subtle truth is that the more that one feels protected, the more that one will feel themselves to be valuable and valued. This intimate connection. When someone is protected in their childhood, in their upbringing, the message it conveys to that individual is that they are valued. Why? Because you only protect something which is important. So behind the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a very deep understanding of the psychology. And therefore, when we look into the world right now, when we see how there is literally a pandemic of individuals who feel very insecure, very undervalued, then it immediately sends a message that the leaders, the protectors of society, are not performing their duty properly. This is why leadership is such an important principle. Even to the point that we see in our scriptures that in previous ages, if, for example, the child of a Brahmana or the child of a citizen was to die untimely, the citizen would go to the king and say, there's something wrong with your leadership. Because if your leadership was proper, we could not have such unnatural situations as the children dying before their own parents. So leadership is a very powerful principle for this age. In fact, leadership is a powerful principle in every age. So now to this particular verse. The king will consider all embodied living entities as dear as his own self. Sometimes we feel that the statements of Scripture are aspirational. I disagree. The statements of the scripture are not so much aspirational, they are describing a reality. Think about this line: the king will consider all embodied living entities as dear as his own self. Why? There's a term in our tradition called Shastra Yukti. Shastra Yukti means the logic of the Shastra. So when we look at the statements, even the statements themselves, they not only describe something, they also point towards something. So they have what we call an implied meaning. Why is it the king considers all living entities as dear as his own self? The reason is very simple. And not only does it apply to the king, it applies to each and every one of us. Behind this statement is also indicated this principle of karma. The reason why the king regards all living entities as dear as his own self is because the way that he treats those living entities, the way that he treats his citizens, is the way that he is preparing himself to be treated. Right? That's the point. What I do to another individual is exactly what I am preparing to have happen to me. That's the point. So whenever you see someone mistreating other people, we should understand that they are damaging themselves. Therefore, we should feel sorrow, or we should feel pity for such individuals. The Bhagavatam says that the root cause of all suffering is ignorance. Ignorance. So when an individual engages in activity which is harmful to another, in this material world, because of such deep ignorance, people think I'm harming them. That is different to the conclusion of the Shastra. The conclusion of the Shastra is that when we do something wrong to another person, we are actually harming ourselves. We are damaging our own selves. Therefore, this law of karma. What is karma? Karma is an exercise in empathy. Karma is an exercise in empathy. Just imagine how revolutionary this teaching is. If in every school, in every educational institution, people were taught not what they taught now. Now, people have dual teachings right now, and this is really dangerous. What do I mean by dual teachings? Dual teachings means something is said to them and something is shown to them. You understand? Two tracks, two methodologies of communication. Jai Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai. Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Gaura Hari Ki Jai. Right now, in the modern society, there are two tracks of communication. One track of communication is the words which are spoken to people. And the other track of communication is the examples that are role modeled by those in positions of influence or authority. And which of the two do you think is a more powerful communication? What people say or what people see? What people see. So actually, the methodology of leadership is the methodology of example. We call this sadachar. How the leader leads is how the leader behaves him or herself. It's not what they say. That's secondary. It's important, but it's secondary. So in my day-to-day role as a leadership consultant, one of the things we teach is about culture. How do we set the culture of an organization, or we could say a community? So much of the culture of any organization or any community is implicit. It is subtle. It's not what is said. It's not what is said. It's more what is not said. It is more what is done. It is more the role modeling. It is also what is rewarded. Culture is what is rewarded, and culture is the lowest standard that is allowed. You see, all of these things set the culture. So whatever is allowed, then people see, oh, that was allowed. People were allowed to act like this. I can also act like this. People will naturally come down to the lowest standard. What is rewarded, that's what I'll do. That's what gets all the appreciation. So that's what I will start to do. So therefore, this consideration of treating others as dear as one's own self, it is not an ideal. It is a reality. This is the truth of our existence. How I treat my brother and sister is how I am always preparing myself to be treated. It is simply due to ignorance that I feel I will mistreat one person and I will have a glorious life. You can predict someone's existence by how they behave towards others in the present. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, the love you give pursues you. The way that we act towards others is what we are implicitly drawing upon ourselves in our own lives. So again, if this was taught throughout the educational institutions, imagine the revolution. And this is just one line of one verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? So the message is what is shown. Now also there's another subtle point. When things are explained to people, there's a very powerful statement by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada says training means samskar. Samskar is an impression. So real training has to leave an impression on the heart. You see? There's a subtle difference between telling people you shouldn't do that to this particular person because it's wrong. Someone who's a little bit more pious, and there aren't many people like that in this modern age, may take it seriously. But think about the difference if you tell people the way you're treating that person is how you're going to be treated later on. Now it's much more compelling. Why? Both the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata says that everyone is self-interested. You understand? Self-interested means I'm concerned primarily about myself. Even if you tell people that if you do this to this person, it's not nice, they don't care as much. But if you tell them that what you're doing to this person, are you prepared to have that happen back to you? Hold on. No, I don't want anything bad to happen to me. I don't mind doing that to this person, but I don't want anything bad to happen to me. So, due to the ignorance of modern society, we don't understand how much we are interdependent. So someone who's really intelligent, someone who really wants a glorious spiritual life would do what? They would be deeply compassionate to all living entities and especially have very deep loving exchanges with all the Vaishnavas, including the Vaishnavas who sometimes behave improperly. We want to forgive others because we want to be forgiven for our own mistakes. You understand? Again, that connection between how we act towards others and what we experience within our own self. You tell people to forgive, they probably won't do it. You tell people that the more you forgive others, the more you will experience forgiveness for mistakes that you also make. Suddenly it's a different thing. In other words, people need to understand WIIFM. You know what that stands for? What's in it for me? People need to understand that. So the king acts in this example. He will always be increasing the pleasures of his friends. Why has Krishna manifested all of these living entities? Why? Why association? Okay, imagine this. It's your birthday. Okay? It's your birthday. You burst into the room. There's a birthday cake there, right? You're like, wow, there's a birthday cake there. You know, you're really excited. You blow out the candles, right? And then you start singing, happy birthday to me, happy birthday to me. If you saw that, you'd think that's really unfortunate. Where's your friends at, right? Where's your family? Huh? And then it gets even worse. You find out that the person whose birthday it is, they baked their own cake. No one baked the cake for them, right? In fact, all the candles on the cake, they put the candles on the cake. They're the ones who lit all the candles. Why? Because there's no association. None. No association. Now, that's scenario 1. Imagine scenario 2. It's your birthday. You didn't even know someone had baked a cake for you. In fact, you didn't even know, but there's a cake, there's presents. They threw a surprise party, right? They surprised you. You're shocked. They got you all your favorite foods. The cake is exactly the favorite cake you have. There's all kinds of gifts there. Suddenly, you're enjoying a lot more. Krishna has manifested living entities. Why? Because the enjoyment increases when one is surrounded by loving association. And as a representative of Krishna, what is the king doing? He will always be increasing the pleasures of his friends. That means not just association, it means deep, loving association. Pleasure, friends. As Vaishnavas, we are therefore meant to have all 3 types of relationship. We have relationship with our seniors, by which we receive guidance and compassion. We have relationships with our peers, by which we exchange, reveal the mind. And we have relationship with our juniors, where we share what we've been given. And to have a healthy community, have a functional life, have deep exchanges, we need all 3 dynamics of relationship. All 3 dynamics have to be there. We have to receive, we have to share, we have to give. And that healthy exchange, it allows us to grow in various ways. The king he says he will intimately associate with liberated persons. Now that's interesting. It doesn't just say associate, it says he will intimately associate. We are and we are becoming the individuals that we allow into our own hearts. So it's not just association, it's intimate association. This term Shraddha is very significant within our tradition. Shraddha. The first part, Shrad, it comes from the Sanskrit Rid. Rid means heart. And Da, it actually relates to this idea of shelter. So the etymology, the meaning of the word Shraddha is literally the place where the heart finds shelter. Wherever your heart finds shelter, that is where your faith has been placed. And this Krishna consciousness is literally an affair of the heart. That is why association and good association is so important. We were speaking yesterday at the Ratha Yatra. They gave us this topic about how to attune to the voice within. It's a very, very interesting topic. It's a very intimate topic. Because we were explaining how our ability to tune in to the glorious, ever-existing, affectionate, and deeply loving guidance of Krishna within the heart is based upon the quality of our hearts. Our heart is like a radio that is meant to be attuned in such a way that it is able to become receptive to the voice of Krishna within the heart, the voice of the Supersoul. And the difficulty we have in the modern age is, in most cases, that internal radio is broken, right? We say literally that most living entities on the planet right now, they are literally broken-hearted. Broken-hearted. Broken-hearted to such an extent that many people have given up this idea that there can be some supreme loving entity, even amongst people who are religious. Even amongst people who are religious. Some people who are religious, they believe in God, but you can see by their behavior, they do not understand his sweetness. Madhuram. They do not understand the deep affection. It is really important in our lives. One of the most important things to remember in our lives is not just that there is a supreme person, but that supreme person is supremely loving. And he really loves you. He really cares about each and every one of you. And he really desires what's best for you. Not just on your birthday, right? But at all times. And with that understanding, with that proper awareness, we should be moving in that direction. We want to repair the state of the heart. This is the meaning of this Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Cleansing the mirror of the heart, repairing the condition of the heart. Because as the heart becomes repaired, then you are constantly in a state of devotional ecstasy and in a state of divine affection. That is actually the natural state of the living entity. So when we practice this Krishna consciousness, we should understand and do it with aspiration, with prayojana. In other words, keeping the goal in mind. Otherwise, we can forget why we're practicing. Maybe we'll end on this point, then we'll open up for questions. If you look carefully, you'll see in the modern world is very good at killing so many things. In this purport, Prabhupada talks about allowing cow slaughter. In Vedic astrology, there are the moon. The moon represents your mind and emotions. The moon also means mother. So in our scriptures, we know that there are 7 mothers. Including amongst those 7 mothers is the cow. So one of the reasons why in any society there'll be huge mental illness is when the mothers are abused. Right? So women as mothers, the cow, Mother Earth, Bhumi. If any of the mothers are mistreated, part of the karmic reaction is that there's huge mental disturbance in that same society. And these are things that are not known unless we have this spiritual knowledge. Because it is not something that can be observed empirically. One has to receive it by the descending process of knowledge. That is why Srila Prabhupada's books are so powerful. Because they allow us to see that which cannot be seen otherwise. Yeah? So never think that this knowledge is impractical. In fact, this knowledge is the most practical knowledge. How do I say that? What is practical about Scripture? There's a very simple logic. If you want to know how everything works, you simply find out from the person who made it. Very simple. Aham savasya pravavo mata savam pravatate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samam vitaha. Krishna has already explained that. I'm the source of all of this. I'm the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything is emanating from me. He says that. Then he goes on to explain those people who get the point, the people who are a bit smart, what do? They worship me. Not only do they worship, but in that worship, they experience what everyone's looking for. Machita madgata pranab bodhayanta prosperam kathayantischa mamnityam tusyanticha ramanticha. He says, my devotees are experiencing great bliss and satisfaction from enlivening one another about me. Exactly as the king is speaking about here. Always increasing the pleasure of his friends and intimately associating with liberated persons. And this last point, he'll be a chastising hand to all impious persons. Again, that principle of protection. We have so many broken individuals in the world. Broken why? Broken-hearted because they do not feel valued. And why don't they feel valued? Because they weren't protected. They weren't protected. So we are meant to be that agent of change in society. But it has to start in our own communities, and we are meant to be agents of change in our communities, but it has to start in our own relationships, and we're meant to be agents of change in our own relationships, but it has to start within our own hearts. So there is an intimate connection between our own practice of bhakti, our own internal cultivation, this Cheto, Darpana, Marjanam. And the more that we work on that, the more that it automatically and intimately spills over into every single exchange and every single relationship. It is so important at this time. We don't want to be like the individuals who engage in foolish activities and they have no idea that they're setting up their own situation negatively. So Prabhupada tells this story. Rajaputra Chiranjeev Muniputra Marjeev, of the sage who's going through the village. And he gives different statements to different members of the village. So he sees a butcher, and he says, you shouldn't live and you shouldn't die. He sees a pure devotee of the Lord. He said, you can live or die, it makes no difference. He sees a prince. He says, you should live as long as possible. He sees a brahmachari. He says, you should die. But then he goes on to explain why. He says to the butcher, don't live and don't die. Your behavior, your daily lifestyle is hellish. You just kill and slaughter all these animals every day, right? So you shouldn't live doing this hellish behavior. But also you shouldn't die, because when you die, you're going to go to hell and you're going to suffer terribly for this. So don't live, don't die. He says to the pure devotee, actually we'll do that last. He says to the prince, he says, you should live as long as possible, right? You're a prince because of your previous pious behavior, but now all you're doing is impious behavior. Sinful activity, you're squandering your good karma by doing all this impious behavior. So you better live as long as possible, because when you die, you're going to have to pay for all this bad behavior. So you should live as long as possible. He says to the brahmachari, you should die. Because of all of your austerities, when you pass away, you'll go to a much more elevated situation, so you could die. And he says to the pure devotee, you can live or die, makes no difference. Why? Because while you're on this planet right now, you're fully absorbed in devotional service. You're already on the spiritual platform. And then when you leave your body, you'll simply return back to Krishna, back to the kingdom of God. So you can live or die, makes no difference. We don't understand how intimately related we are to each other. Our thoughts, our feelings, our dealings with each other is literally design by dealings. And you can see who understands this. You can tell who understands this. And understands here means vigyan. It means the knowledge has entered into the heart. You can tell who understands this by how people behave. So whenever you see someone doing something to another person that is rude, harmful, disrespectful, we should feel sorry for such people, because they are damaging themselves. This is a very different conception to the material conception. The material conception is someone does something to you, you want to destroy them. Right? They do something negative, I'm going to show them who's boss. I'm going to get you back. Right? It means we don't understand. Right? As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say, no one can harm us unless we harm ourselves. And it's so true. It's so true. Even the way that we experience other people also says so much about what we've accepted within our own hearts. If your behavior causes me to become too disturbed, it means I still have work to do on my own inner understanding. If I deeply accept that I am loved, valued by Krishna at all times, in all places, in all circumstances, then another person's foolish behavior will not cause me to lose my own higher consciousness. I may not associate so closely with such an individual, with such personalities who are in the lower modes, but I would also understand that actually the reason why they're behaving so poorly is because of their own issues in their own life and in their own heart. So we have to develop that kind of consciousness. Otherwise, we will always remain individuals who are like a puppet. My own consciousness is based upon how other people behave or don't behave towards me. We need to grow and become as strong as we can so that we can actually be in the world, literally in the world, but not disturbed by the craziness that goes on in this world. And whatever we did or did not receive earlier in our lives, by the power of Krishna consciousness, we can cultivate it within our hearts, within our relationships, within our communities, and within the world right now. So please don't wait for anyone else to make a difference. Let us all understand that the hero that we're waiting for to make a difference is, in a sense, sitting within our hearts, telling us, take it on board to make that difference yourself. Krishna's within the heart. He's inspiring all of us. And the more that we do that work, this is an invisible kind of sadhana, right? Accepting the statements of the Shastra within the heart. The more that we do that work, it's a work that no one sees. But it's the work that makes the most profound difference in every single person's life. And it begins when we come to the Bhagavatam. It begins not just when we hear. Not just when we hear. It begins when we hear attentively. Right? There's so much subtle science to scripture and to Krishna consciousness. When you hear attentively, what you hear goes deep into your consciousness. That is why there is such an emphasis on attentive hearing, attentive chanting, attentive relationships. Because when it's done with attention, it goes very deeply into the consciousness where it transforms the individual much more strongly. Okay, so those were some thoughts from the Bhagavatam. Let me pause and ask if there are any questions or comments before we close. I think we have to close at 8:30. Is that right? Class is an hour? Yes, no? Yes, okay. So we've got about just under 10 minutes. If you have a question, do they have a microphone, or how do we do this? I'll ask the organizers. Do we have a microphone for the people who have a question? Yes, use okay, there's a microphone coming. So did I see your hand, or who raised it? I saw yours first, and then we'll come to this side. Yes, so if you pass the microphone to this gentleman. If you pass the Prabhu first, I think he had his hand up first. You can decide, I don't mind.
Hare Krishna. I have a problem with being open to...
Can you speak a little bit louder? You have...
I lost my voice. I have a problem with this internal cultivation. The problem is that I know I should follow the instructions of the spiritual master, but I feel like I'm always hitting like an internal brick wall. It's not... I know it should be done, and I probably have done it before. But
you know it should be done, and...
I've probably done it before.
Yes.
But it seems that the spiritual master is asking for more, a more deeper commitment. And I don't know, it feels like I'm selling myself short. And every time I try and push to achieve that instruction, you always hit the brick wall again, you go back to bad habits. So, I mean, it gets disheartening, it gets discouraging that you always hit the brick wall. And I want to know how to, one, be open to the instruction, know that I can't figure it out. And it seems like there's no external means to break through that brick wall. Mm-hmm. So, what would be your advice?
Thank you for your question, first of all. Thank you for your openness as well. I'm just going to give me a moment to meditate on that. So, in any situation where we hit some challenges, the first thing we have to do is the diagnosis. We may have a challenge, we may have difficulty, and everyone will have different challenges at different times. The first question is the why. Right? So if I hit a brick wall, I want to understand, why do I hit a brick wall? The solution that's going to make a difference in the life of each and every devotee has a lot to do with being very clear on where the problem actually stems from. Okay? So a major part of the progress is also what you're doing right now, which is revealing the mind. Okay? Especially when we reveal the mind in the association of devotees, to the spiritual master, to friends, devotee friends, etc. It is actually an expression of humility. It is also an expression of surrender. It's an expression of recognizing I can't do this by myself, but I'm open. I'm reaching out for understanding and guidance. So I will give some principle because I don't know the specifics of your situation. So it wouldn't be fair I'd have to actually know more about the detail of your situation. But the first principle is to really try to understand, why do I hit a brick wall? Right? Is it that I'm hitting these are some possibilities, but this is not exhaustive. For some people, sometimes we hit a brick wall because we don't understand why we're being asked to do something in a certain way. When I travel throughout the ISKCON world, I often see that people have not understood why certain things are requested. The example we gave, attentiveness. Many devotees, they don't really understand why they should be attentive. They don't understand the benefit of being attentive. They don't understand what happens to their devotional life if they're not attentive. Someone's just told them, be attentive. So what happens when you're an intelligent person, and the devotees are sumedasha, they're the most intelligent. When you're an intelligent person and you don't understand properly why something should be done, that behavior in the mind starts to become less important. And then after a while, the individual may even give up that behavior completely. Just like we see those people who are born in cultures where they have this knowledge of Bhagavatam, of Krishna consciousness, of Bhagavad Gita, often the culture is being lost. Why? Because the children will ask the parents, why do we do this? Why do we do this ritual? Why do we do this practice? Why do we follow this? Why do we accept scripture? And they get no good answers. And it's not just because it's our tradition. That's not a good answer. It has to be an answer that makes sense to the person that you're answering the question for. Because they get no good answer, they think, well, if there's no good reason for doing it, then I'll do it now because mum and dad are around. When mum and dad are no longer around, I just won't do it, because if there's no good reason, then why am I spending my time and energy doing this? I could go and watch TV, right? I could go on the internet. So I don't want to divert to that. The first thing is to understand, why am I hitting that brick wall? And to do some diagnosis. Then and that diagnosis can also be, as you're doing, in the association of devotees. My spiritual master said Krishna will often use the devotees whom we reveal our minds to in order to give us the answers that we need for the challenges that we're facing. Right? And that helps us to really feel a deep sense of intimate gratitude with the devotees. So in Krishna consciousness, we're not trying to be independent, where I don't ask anyone, I have to figure everything out myself. We're not trying to be dependent either, where individual devotees can't think for themselves. We're looking for healthy interdependence. So I'm imbibing the teaching myself so I can help other people. I'm also getting feedback, guidance, insight, inspiration from other devotees so that collectively we can all move forward together. So why am I hitting a brick wall? Let me go through the association of devotees. Let me also read the scriptures. Sometimes I can find the answer by studying the scriptures. What does scripture say about when devotees struggle to move forward? Is it, I'm not saying you necessarily, but is it that I'm hitting a brick wall because of some offense? Right? We know that there was a pastime with the Goswamis. I think it was Rupa Goswami. And he was seeing a vision of Radha and Krishna's pastimes. So Krishna was hiding behind a tree, and he bent down the branch of the tree, because Radharani was trying to reach for something, and he bent down the branch so she could reach it, and when she reached the branch, then he let go, and so she came flying up, you know? And so Rupa Goswami was laughing because he was seeing this internally. But some Vaishnava was walking by who had some disability, and when he heard Rupa Goswami laughing, he thought, oh, he's laughing at me because I've got some disability. And so that Vaishnava took offense. And the moment he took offense, Rupa Goswami lost his vision of Radha and Krishna's pastimes. And he didn't understand what happened. And so he actually spoke to another Goswami. I can't remember the name right now. But they told him, said, you must have made some offense. What you should do is, prepare a feast and invite all the devotees. And the person who doesn't come, that will be the person that you've offended. So someone said, he invited all the Vaishnavas, and this Vaishnava, when he heard, me go to your feast after you laughed at me, I will not come. And so Rupa Goswami realized that this is the person who I've offended, so he approached him. So is it that brick wall because of offenses? Is it a brick wall because of lack of understanding about why? Is it a brick wall because what's being asked of us, there's some practical impediment for us doing it? in which case we may need to then speak to our spiritual master, Guru Maharaj, I would love to do this. There is this issue that I have which is stopping me. Is it because of some kind of philosophical doubt? Yeah. Or is it even that we want to do it and we can do it, but we don't also appreciate that what's being asked of us has its own natural period of maturation? I'll give an example. When Srila Prabhupada was told by his spiritual master to preach in the English-speaking language, did he leave the next day for the West? Yes or no? He didn't. He took many years, and there's a section of the Lilamrita called A Lifetime in Preparation. He prepared himself, but because he was in pursuance of the order of his spiritual master, that was also considered positive. It was also considered favorable. So he was given the instruction, okay, how am I going to fulfill that? Let me start doing those steps that will move me in the direction that I've been asked to move in. So that is also another consideration. So these are some things to consider that relates to this particular question. So through association of devotees, through our own study, our own introspection, through revealing the mind with devotees, and also, if as and where necessary, in discussions with our own authorities, Krishna will help us, especially if behind all of these behaviors, the right desire is there. Krishna will help us to move forward undoubtedly. Yeah? But we have to start with the why. If I'm hitting a brick wall again and again, the question is why? Yeah? I guess one other thing I'm inspired to share is that sometimes we may even be hard on ourselves. We may think I'm hitting a brick wall when other people look at it and think, no, you're moving forward. It's not gonna, what you've been asked to do isn't something that can happen overnight. So it is the case that for this kind of let's say instruction that you've been given, it is going to take time, and it will require it to be done in small steps which will eventually move you forward. So we may also sometimes misperceive our own progress in relation to a particular goal as well. So those are some considerations. I hope that gives you some food for thought in this regards. Thank you for your question. Do we have any other question before? Yes, the other question, yes.
Hare Krishna. So one point you made was about protection and that people's value comes from that, and then another point was about the forgiveness and that we should forgive people. So can you maybe just speak a bit about how those two balance out?
Yes. So, it's a very good question. First of all, the more that we feel very secure within ourselves, the more easy it is to not take offense at other people's behavior. If someone deals with us in such a way that communicates that they don't value us, what really hurts is if they are touching upon our own inner dialogue where we ourselves don't really believe that we're valuable. You see? So if someone has a very, very strong inner dialogue, they have a very strong sense that they are valuable, they're part and parcel of Krishna, and that they're always valuable, no matter what people say or don't say, do or don't do. Then, of course, we're still are individuals, so we will feel something if people treat us a certain way, but deep down, it won't disturb us. So Prabhupada said the Vaishnava is like the ocean. On the surface, there may be waves, but deep down is always calm. Right? That's the first point. Now, if there's that deep sense of value, then it's easier to forgive. So that's how the two things are connected. If there's a deep sense of value, then it's easy to react in a balanced way. That means we don't overreact, but we also don't underreact. So we may maintain healthy boundaries, absolutely, but we understand that what that person says or does, if it's negative, is not a reflection of me. It's a reflection of their own issues. Yeah? And in that state, we can raise others without being brought down. It's easy to think that my emotional state is based upon how other people treat me. And there's definitely some truth to that on one level. But much deeper, actually, my deep sense of who I am and how I am is based upon the state of my own heart. It is a real fact. So protection, if we are in relationships of healthy Vaishnava Sangha, where we feel protection and we're giving that protection, we're also helping others to really feel a sense that they are valued, they are important. This Priti Lakshanam, these loving exchanges, help to cement that understanding. And if we do that, then people will feel so strong and secure that any attacks from Maya, negative behavior from others within or without the community, will not affect us to the same degree. Yeah? It's really important. The beauty of this Krishna consciousness movement is that Maya knows where we are weak, but Prabhupada's teachings are so powerful that they give us the understanding before the test. Right? It's like a good teacher. They teach you everything you need to know before you get tested. So when the test comes, it's like, right, I know the answer to this one. I went to the Bhagavatam class. I know what's going on. You're being rude, right? But I'm not going to take it personally. I know that's a reflection on you. It's nothing to do with me. That's because something's not happening in your own life, so I don't have to come down to your level. In fact, I can feel compassion for you even though your behavior is improper. I don't have to let your negativity, your mode of ignorance or passion bring down my own consciousness, because I can see more deeply what's really going on. I don't give up my power because of someone else's instability. Yeah? Now again, I may not associate with people who are doing that all the time, because we don't want to allow ourselves to be unnecessarily mistreated, and we don't want them to develop more negative karma, because their negative behavior means that they're going to suffer. You see? So there's an intimate relationship. The more that we have a healthy, deep, secure spiritual consciousness, the easier it is to forgive, or even better, never to take offense in the first place. Yeah? Again, Krishna is so kind. He gives us the lessons before the test. When we come to Bhagavatam class, if we read and hear regularly with a receptive, open heart, what you'll see again and again in your own spiritual life is that Krishna is so kind. He constantly wants to make you strong and reinforce your spiritual intelligence, so that when something happens, you're able to see it with compassionate eyes, with the eyes of wisdom and compassion. That is the Shastra Chakshus. Yeah? And it is how we perceive something that determines how we feel about it. And it is how we feel about it that determines how we respond. Therefore, in the Shastra, the sequence is very important. It's thinking, how we think determines how we feel, and how we feel determines how we act or willing. Yeah? But what we don't do, and this is where Maya catches us, we don't take advantage of these things deeply before the test comes. So when we don't hear regularly, when we don't read regularly, when we don't discuss this knowledge regularly, in fact, when we don't reflect on it regularly, we're like someone who's going out to war and there's no armor. No armor, you know? And then what happens is Maya's just there with all these different weapons, and she just picks people off. Bang, just you got no armor, just takes people out, you know? But if you take advantage of the armor, the spiritual knowledge is like spiritual armor. You put the armor on, then whatever happens, it just doesn't hit you in the same way. I was explaining to one devotee yesterday how even doing the morning program changes your karma. It actually changes your chart. Your astrological chart is changed by coming to the morning program. Your astrological chart is changed by reading the different cantos of the Bhagavatam. You know? We don't understand how profoundly potent the process is, and therefore we think it's not such a big deal, so I won't bother doing the morning program. Or it's not such a big deal, so I don't have to read the Bhagavatam, it's not such a big deal. But you don't understand. And the reason you don't understand, and I gave this analogy, it's just like someone's approaching you with a check for $1 million. They're about to give you $1 million, and then you shout at them because you've had a bad day, right? And you're a bit triggered. So it's like, why are you always talking to me? Leave me alone. Can't you see I'm busy? And then the person's like, wow, they're a bit shocked. Now, you don't know that they were about to give you $1 million. So then you go about the rest of your day thinking, okay, I did snap at them a bit, but they deserved it. I had a bad day. They should understand. Everyone has a bad day. You don't see what was coming your way. You don't miss $1 million because you don't know you were about to receive $1 million. Because you behaved improperly, that what was coming for you, the big benefit that was coming for you, it now went past you. It bypassed you. But we don't even know it because we had no idea that this was coming for you. By our disconnection, by our not taking full shelter, we don't realize how many things, how many blessings, how many auspicious situations were scheduled to be given to us, but we missed the opportunity, right? Imagine practicing Krishna consciousness as like someone who's going to catch a bus or catch a flight. You miss the flight, you don't get to that destination. You don't know. That flight, there was a space on the flight for you. If you turned up at the airport at the right time, you would have been on that flight. You'd have been in Hawaii, palm trees, this and that. But you don't know. You didn't know that because you just rocked up to the airport whenever you felt like it. You missed the flight. But you don't know you missed the flight because you don't know what was coming your way. That's how it works. Yeah? Okay. I think we'll probably need to stop there because it's time. It's 8:43, so apologies for going over. But in summary, we want to understand there's a deeper perception. The knowledge of the Shastra is there to cultivate a purer heart, and from that pure heart, a deeper perception of the world. And that deeper perception of the world is informing the way that we act and react. And the beauty of this, ladies and gentlemen, the beauty of it is that we can transform the heart at every moment by the receptive chanting, the receptive hearing, the receptive association, and even manana, even reflecting on the scriptures and on the teachings of the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. We can transform the heart. So please let's not be like most individuals who only learn when they get attacked by Maya. Someone who's very intelligent will proactively work on the consciousness, on the state of the heart through deep practice. And deep means attentive, receptive, respectful. I respect the Shastra. When you respect something, you really pay attention to it. And it's changing your heart. It is undoubtedly the case that there are many devotees in our movement. They went through some really serious tests. And guess what? In many cases, they didn't even know it was a test. Because they were so well connected to Krishna that they passed the test. And something which should have been really disturbing to them, their consciousness was in a very good space. It just didn't affect them at all. Then the opposite is also true. There are some devotees, the small test threw them, completely disturbed them. Why? Because it's not the test. It's how spiritual our consciousness is relative to the test. You come home from holiday or from visiting somewhere, and your friend comes home, and you're going to help them with their luggage, take it up the stairs. So someone says, is it a struggle to lift up the luggage? Yes and no. Yes and no. If you're lifting up the luggage and you feel weak, it's a struggle. If you're lifting the same luggage and you're very strong, it's easy. So it's not the weight of the luggage, it's how strong we are relative to the luggage. So it's not the challenges in our life, it's how spiritually strong we are relative to the challenges. And we don't know all the challenges that can come. So what would someone intelligent do? If I don't know all the challenges that may come, the best insurance policy is to make myself as strong as possible at all times, because that will allow me to deal with any challenge no matter what. That's a sign of intelligence. Okay, so we'll stop there. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai, Gaura Hari ki jai, Janita Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Page 416, 18. So you'll be on 19 next. That's it.
Thank you for that.